Chapter 10. 2 days later, they stared up at towering walls, mouths open. Kings long dead had built Second Akron to parade what extravagance the kingdom of Thalith possessed, and it contained only a silhouette of the dwarven practicality in Dulangar. The stone walls reached higher, blocking much of the sun, but they were thinner. The buildings were also taller, and many were painted in bright, blinding colors. However, they were all shadowed by the great grey castle clinging to the highest point of the city like a dragon on its treasure. Dare had never seen a sight like it. She leaned on her walking staff as they trudged up the road. A few extra coins jingled in her belt purse. They'd sold the horses to a caravan when they'd first seen the city in the distance. The capital had only gotten bigger as they approached. The guards waved them through the gate with hardly a second glance. Dare picked at her new outfit instead of her bandage. That was easy. Thankfully, Kelin muttered. She went back to pulling at her tunic. These clothes fit much tighter and didn't have pockets, which she did not like at all. They were also much brighter than what the villagers were used to. Caleb had changed hats into a simple black one with a single feather. She, Kelin, and Caleb skirted along the edges of the curving avenues. She fought to keep from staring. This city was far more expansive than Dulangar. Some of these buildings even had 6 stories. They passed by a short, wide fountain at a crossroads. Several people were filling ceramic pots and wooden buckets. Dare slowed her pace to watch as long as she could. She'd never seen a reverse well before. She pointed. "Look, it spits the water up." "Keep walking," Kelin ordered. "Heads down, remember?" Caleb brushed his chin while staring ahead at the city. His skin was as smooth as ever, without a hint of scruff. "I visited this city before." Dare raised her eyebrows and waited for him to continue. "I wanted to practice the common tongue." "Well, you're obviously fluent," she remarked. He offered a small smile. "I insisted when my parents didn't agree." He closed his eyes. He stopped walking. "Thank you. I was alone and lost, and now I'm only lost. So thank you." Dare smirked. "Welcome." They kept climbing higher up the hill, crowded with manners. She wheezed as she leaned into her staff. "Hey, look!" She waved her unwounded arm at a stone mansion covered in creeping ivy. A large banner hung over its walls. "That's the Falcon. We're here." "Yeah." Kelin shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "This is it. We're going to deliver the letter, and you're going to go wherever, Caleb. Hopefully somewhere you're not being hunted." His shoulders slipped forward, and he exhaled. "I won't forget your kindness." "Yeah." Kelin kicked at a smooth cobblestone underneath his boot. No one spoke, and the sounds of carriage wheels and clumping hooves filled the spaces between them. Dare rolled up her sleeves and started to march toward the mansion. Caleb pulled her back by her shoulder. "Dare, a moment?" She stopped and raised an eyebrow. Kelin frowned at the manor. "It doesn't look crowded. Just a couple of guards and people." The elf sighed and ran a hand over his face, staring hard at the mansion. "Remember the last time?" "Trap?" Dare asked. Caleb nodded. "Those devil-worshipping bastards may have been spied on by those offering the reward. Or are working for them." "And that is who?" He frowned and shook his head. "Oh, you think whoever else is out there told them to watch the counts." She nodded without looking at him for acknowledgement. "However, they can't pull that same ruse here, not with all these people, so instead they've got people here already." She cut herself off. "You may not be wrong," Caleb muttered. He looked as if someone kicked him in the gut, and he withdrew farther into the shadows of the buildings. Dare snapped her fingers. He flinched. She offered, "Why don't we go and meet your contact for you? The cultists, or whoever, have a far less chance of recognizing us. And, just to be clear, you're not being hunted by Senna, are you?" Caleb shook his head. "No, I haven't angered any devils recently." Kelin paled. "I don't like this, Dare." Caleb slouched against the wall. "I don't either. There's too much we don't know." "We'll learn it as we go," she prompted. He wrapped his hands around his waist. "I don't know. But, oh, you're right." He banged his head on the wall. "How could I have been so stupid? I should have thought of this." Kelin glanced down the street. "Can we find another inn? Or maybe rest at that waterwork we passed a few streets ago?" Dare grinned. "Yeah, we could tell your contact to meet you there. We'll all meet back there. This plan will work." Caleb stared at her. "My fate is in your hands." He shivered and looked away. "The head cook is cloaked under a spell, so he will look human. Tell him that... Damn, I can't think of anything to say that isn't obvious. Wait!" He scrambled to unwind a necklace with a golden chain that had been tucked beneath his tunic. "Give him this. Tell him he dropped it or something, and Dare, give me your letter." She freed the rolled-up letter from her backpack. "Thank you." He ripped off a corner. "Hey! Not so loud!" Kelin hissed. He glimpsed around, but the rushing people on the street didn't deign to give them a single glance. "I'm sorry, but I need parchment." He pulled out a tiny stylus from the folds of his belt purse. He penciled a quick sketch of the fountain on the scrap of paper and a few words in letters the humans didn't recognize. Then he rolled it up and stuck the paper through one of the necklace's chain links. It swayed as he held it out to them. "Be careful." Dare didn't hide her smile as she snatched up the chain. "We will." She pulled the necklace into her belt purse. Kelin scowled. She turned to Caleb. "Thank you for your trust. We'll all meet back up at the waterwork." Then she tossed her walking staff away, and it clattered against the cobblestones as it landed. Kelin cursed and chased after her. At the entrance, the guards waved them through without hassle. They ambled through a tunnel-like corridor and emerged into a walled courtyard. Count Calloway sat in a high-backed chair overlooking the yard below. He was a large, dark man, once a fighter who had lost a siege to years of fine food. He wore a saffron cloak and golden armbands. Now Dare understood why they hadn't been made to check their swords. Nothing but a bow could reach him. They were in line behind a couple currently speaking with the Count. She glanced over her shoulder and saw more people shuffle in after them. Sooner than she was ready for, the couple in front of them bowed and turned to walk back down the tunnel. She stumbled a little as she bowed, and then strained her neck to look up at the Count. "My lord, I'm delivering a letter from an old squire of yours, Derora Saxen." The man high on the tall chair stirred. "I haven't heard that name in quite a while. He moved out to the country, didn't he?" She gulped, staring at him. "Yes, my lord. He's my father." "Is that old blacksmith still with him?" "Yes, my lord," Kelin answered through stiff lips. The Count chuckled. "So, girl, you're his daughter, eh? Why didn't you have yourself announced?" Dare flushed. She thrust up the letter in front of her. "I have—" "Just because your father would rather be a farmer than a knight doesn't mean you aren't noble, girl," the Count boomed. She wrinkled her nose. The Count leaned forward. "Are you embarrassed, child?" Dare tried to keep her shoulders from creeping up toward her ears. She glanced at Kelin for support, but he leaned away from her. The Lord hummed tunelessly to himself.
Yes, your mother was a maid here and—
He interrupted himself with a laugh.
Oh, yes, she wouldn't give young Riordan a breadcrumb no matter how hard he tried.
Dare's forehead bunched together in thought. She'd known her parents had met in the Count's service, but she'd never asked about it.
Yes, until one night he was inebriated, incredibly, and was sauntering around naked as the day he was born. He went to the window where the maid slept and threw rocks through it. Then he sang the song of Mendelin and Tara. Extremely off-key, I may add. Woke up the entire castle.
Dare's jaw dropped. The Count's smirk faded.
So, child, what news do you bring? Let's have this letter.
A small, robed man with ink splashed across his fingers stepped forward. But Dare was still staring up at the Count. Naked? She let the letter slip from her grasp and into the scribe's. In her heart, she knew this moment was important. She'd completed her quest. However, all she could think about were images she was trying to burn out of her imagination.
Indeed.
His tone changed, and his imperious voice drifted down.
What is this missive regarding?
Dare blinked, trying to say something other than naked again. Security, my lord, Kelin cut in. His words only wavered a little. Our lands are unprotected. There are no soldiers or men-at-arms to defend us if anything happens, and this outlaw has already brought chaos to our home. The Count nodded.
I am not surprised, although I believed our western settlements to be more at peace. Still, dark times are unfolding. We have border raids to the east with Uriel, and of course this outlaw. And now they say he's in the cult of Senna. Damn scum.
Dare coughed into her hand. But what if he's an innocent man who has just been framed for whatever murders have happened? The Count snorted.
You're young, child. An innocent man need not fear, but this outlaw obviously feels he has to hide. This is not the action of an innocent man.
Kelin bowed and trod on Dare's foot, just as she was inhaling for another sentence. He burst. Your wisdom is sage, my lord. I wonder if we could, in your mercy, beg some food from your kitchens. We've come a long way to deliver this letter, and we're very hungry. The Count nodded once.
Very well. For the lady.
His gaze lingered on Dare, then he looked beyond them.
Bring in the next.
A guard broke away from near the stairs to escort the villagers. Dare heard Kelin's sigh of relief as they ducked forward into the folds of the manor. The guard led them to a dark dining room without a word. When they asked for food from the nearest servant, he wordlessly handed them some leftover mutton and vanished back to his duties. The guard departed and left them alone at a large table. Dare whispered, I'm too nervous to eat. Kelin looked down at the soup, and she heard his stomach grumble, but he pushed the bowl away. Me too. She rose and headed toward the kitchen. He followed behind her. Dare waved at the first person they saw and stepped in front of the man. She assumed he was some sort of undercook because of his apron. She announced, I need to speak with the head cook, please. Right now. The cook eyed them with severe doubt, but shrugged.
This way, but he won't be happy to see you. He's not been the most patient man as of late.
Let me guess, since about the time the news of the outlaw started? Dare gauged. The cook fired a look at her.
Yeah, I guess. There he is.
He pointed and strolled off. The master cook was a short, round man whom Dare would not have picked out to be any sort of spy or even an elf. He was not attractive by human standards, and the stains across his apron made him appear a beggar. His scowl deepened when he saw them approaching. He crossed his arms, leaning a large wooden spoon against his shoulder.
Who are you?
He started tapping a foot. Dare groped her belt purse. Kelin hastened to say, "We wished to compliment you on the food. The leftovers we had were excellent. My mouth is still watering." The cook sneered.
I have things to do.
He spun on his heel. Dare let the gold necklace slip to the floor. "Wait! You dropped something!" She lowered herself to a knee and scooped the necklace up, staring hard at the paper stuck into it. The cook eyed her with unashamed suspicion, but plucked the jewelry from her fingers. He cupped his hands as he read the note, and she heard him suck in his breath and hold it. His head snapped toward them. Kelin clasped his arms against his chest. "I never thought a kitchen would be so cold." Around them, Dare felt cool, damp air flowing in. The lights were dimming, and the world was fast fading to shades of gray.
Run!
The cook knocked over bowls from the counter as he whirled around. He was gone before the dishes hit the floor. Dare hauled on Kelin's arm. "Come on!" Tendrils of fog curled into the room. She charged through the expanding mist and yanked her sword halfway out of its sheath before it got stuck. The last thing she saw was Kelin's terrified face before the world went black.